Battle of Marathon. The year was 490 BC. A Persian invasion force of 25,000 warriors landed on Greek shores, sent by King Darius I to punish Athens for supporting rebellions against his empire. The Athenians, led by General Miltiades, marched to meet them with just 10,000 hoplites, joined by 1,000 soldiers from tiny Plataea. Sparta promised help, but wouldn't arrive for days due to a religious festival. On the plain of Marathon, Miltiades made a desperate gamble. He weakened his center to strengthen his flanks, luring the elite Persian troops into a trap. The reinforced Greek wings wheeled inward, encircling the enemy. In just 2 hours, 6,400 Persians lay dead against only 192 Greeks. The victory was more than military. It saved Athenian democracy in its infancy, preserved the Greek culture that would shape Western civilization, and proved the mighty Persian Empire could bleed. A messenger ran 25 miles to Athens to announce the triumph before dying of exhaustion, inspiring the modern Marathon. Without Marathon, democracy might have died in its cradle. Battle of Thermopylae. In 480 BC, Persian King Xerxes I returned to finish what his father Darius had started, leading perhaps 150,000 soldiers into Greece. King Leonidas of Sparta positioned 7,000 Greeks at Thermopylae, a narrow mountain pass where numbers meant nothing. For 7 days, the Greeks held. The Spartans and their allies slaughtered wave after wave of Persians in the narrow corridor, where Persian cavalry and archers were useless. Xerxes watched in fury as his elite immortals fell to Greek spears. Then betrayal struck. A Greek traitor named Ephialtes revealed a mountain path that would allow the Persians to surround the defenders. Leonidas dismissed most of his army to fight another day, but he and 300 Spartans remained with about 700 Thespians. They knew they would die. They made their final stand not for victory, but for time. Every hour they held gave Athens time to evacuate. On the final day, they fought with broken spears, then swords, then hands and teeth. All fell, but their sacrifice bought time for Greece to regroup and ultimately defeat Xerxes at Salamis and Plataea. Thermopylae became legend, a symbol of courage against impossible odds. Battle of Hastings, October 14, 1066. Harold Godwinson, King of England, had just repelled a massive Viking invasion in the north. Exhausted, his army marched 250 miles in 4 days to meet another threat. William, Duke of Normandy, had landed in the south, claiming the English throne. The two armies met near Hastings. Harold's Saxon shield wall was nearly impenetrable, a wall of overlapping shields and axes that slaughtered Norman cavalry charges. William was losing. Then he ordered a feint, a fake retreat. The Saxons broke formation to pursue. It was a fatal mistake. Norman cavalry wheeled around and cut them down. Harold himself fell, allegedly from an arrow to the eye, though the exact manner of his death remains disputed. In 1 day, 10,000 men died. William became king. The Saxon aristocracy was replaced entirely by Norman lords. The English language transformed, absorbing Norman French to create modern English. English law, architecture, and culture changed completely. A single tactical deception, a fake retreat executed perfectly, decided the fate of a nation for a millennium. England would never be Saxon again. Siege of Constantinople. For 53 days in 1453, the capital of the Byzantine Empire faced its final test. Constantinople, the city that had stood for over 1,000 years as the gateway between East and West, was surrounded by 80,000 Ottoman Turks under Sultan Mehmed II. Defending the massive walls were just 7,000 Byzantine and Italian soldiers led by Emperor Constantine XI. Mehmed brought weapons that would change warfare forever, massive bronze cannons that could hurl 600-pound stone balls. The largest, called Basilica, required 60 oxen to move and could fire only 7 times per day, but each shot shattered sections of the ancient walls. For weeks, the defenders repaired the breaches at night, fighting off assaults by day. Then Mehmed made his master stroke. He had his ships dragged overland on greased logs, bypassing the chain blocking the harbour, and launched them into the Golden Horn behind the city's defences. The defenders were now surrounded. On May 29th, Mehmed ordered a final massive assault. Constantine XI died fighting in the streets, his body never identified. The fall of Constantinople ended the last remnant of the Roman Empire and opened Europe to Ottoman expansion. It also sent Greek scholars fleeing west with ancient manuscripts, helping spark the Renaissance. Battle of Waterloo, June 18, 1815. Napoleon Bonaparte, escaped from exile, had retaken France and now faced his final reckoning near a Belgian village called Waterloo. Against him stood British forces under the Duke of Wellington and Prussian armies under Field Marshal Blucher. Napoleon delayed his attack until noon, waiting for rain-soaked ground to dry for his artillery and cavalry. That delay doomed him. The battle raged with unprecedented ferocity. Wellington's troops held a ridge, repelling French cavalry charges that came in waves. At one point, Wellington's centre nearly broke. But he held, reportedly checking his watch and muttering about hoping night or the Prussians would come. At 4:30 p.m., Blucher's Prussians arrived on Napoleon's right flank. The Emperor committed his elite Imperial Guard for a final desperate charge. They had never been defeated. They were slaughtered. Napoleon's army broke and fled. 4 days later, he abdicated for the second and final time. The Napoleonic Wars that had consumed Europe for over a decade were over. The Congress of Vienna redrew the map of Europe. The balance of power it established lasted nearly a century until World War I. A battle decided by hours and minutes changed the world's trajectory. Battle of Gettysburg. For 3 days in July 1863, Union and Confederate armies clashed in Pennsylvania in what would become the bloodiest battle ever fought on American soil. Confederate General Robert E. Lee had invaded the North, hoping a decisive victory would force Lincoln to negotiate peace and recognize Southern independence. The two armies met accidentally at Gettysburg. The Confederates won the first day, but Union forces held the high ground of Cemetery Ridge. On July 2nd, fighting raged across Devil's Den, Little Round Top, and the Peach Orchard. The Union line bent, but did not break. Lee, convinced his army was invincible, ordered one final attack on July 3rd. Pickett's charge sent 12,500 Confederates across open fields toward the Union center. Federal artillery and rifles cut them down. Only a few hundred reached the Union line. They were killed or captured. In 3 days, 51,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. Lee retreated. He never invaded the North again. The Confederacy never recovered its offensive capability. Combined with the Union victory at Vicksburg the next day, Gettysburg marked the turning point of the Civil War. The United States would remain one nation, not two. Battle of Stalingrad. From August 1942 to February 1943, 2 million people fought for control of a single Soviet city on the Volga River. Hitler needed Stalingrad for its strategic position and symbolic value. Stalin ordered it held at any cost. The cost was unimaginable. The Germans pushed into the city, and the battle descended into hell. Soldiers fought house by house, room by room, staircase by staircase. The average life expectancy of a newly arrived Soviet soldier was 24 hours. Snipers became legends. Vasily Zaitsev killed over 200 Germans. The city became a frozen graveyard of rubble. Then, in November, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a massive pincer movement that surrounded the entire German Sixth Army. Hitler refused to allow retreat, promising air supply that never came. By February, Field Marshal Paulus surrendered, the first German field marshal to ever do so. Over 900,000 people died. The Nazi aura of invincibility was shattered. The tide of World War II turned. From Stalingrad, Soviet forces advanced relentlessly west, ultimately reaching Berlin. Had Hitler won, Nazi Germany might have secured the Eastern Front and won the war. Stalingrad saved the world from that future. D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history. Over 150,000 Allied soldiers crossed the English Channel to storm 5 beaches on the coast of Normandy, France. Operation Overlord was years in planning, but success was never guaranteed. The Allies had deceived Hitler about the landing location, convincing him the invasion would come at Calais. German Field Marshal Rommel had built massive fortifications, the Atlantic Wall, with mines, obstacles, and machine gun nests. At dawn, American, British, and Canadian forces hit the beaches. Omaha Beach became a slaughterhouse. German machine guns fired down from the cliffs, cutting through the first waves. The water turned red. Men drowned under the weight of their equipment. For hours, the outcome hung in the balance. But they held, then pushed forward, meter by meter. By day's end, the Allies had established a foothold. Within a month, over 1 million soldiers had landed. Paris was liberated in August. The invasion forced Germany to fight on 2 fronts, accelerating the collapse of the Third Reich. Without D-Day's success, the war in Europe would have dragged on indefinitely. It was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany.